What's up, guys? It's Russ from Backyard Boatworks. So I'm continuing to work on my Paramount project, and today I'm going to walk you through the steps I took to replace some rotting wood underneath my bow eye hook. So I noticed that there was some brown water running out from my eye hook on the outside of the hull, running down the keel. So that could only mean one thing, that the wood core backer plate, I guess you could call it, for the eye hook was rotted, so it needed to be replaced. So I cut out this bulkhead to give me some easier access to it, put my diamond tile cutting blade on my 4.5-inch grinder, and just started chipping away at this. So once I had the top section of the fiberglass kind of cut loose, I took my chisel and by hand started to gently kind of chisel out some of that rotting wood that was underneath that top layer of lamination. You just want to be careful here not to cut through the hull. It'd be really hard to do that. You'd be really foolish if you actually cut through the hull. Just keeping the angle grinder kind of at the same angle the hull will make sure that you don't go all the way through. So you just make light cuts, and you can see here I got a big chunk of the rotting wood out, and now I'm moving to my 16 grit silicone carbide grinding disc, and I'm just starting to take off any of the high spots here and clean out any of that rotting wood from the area where the eye hook used to be. So it's kind of crappy, I guess unfortunate that this had to be replaced, but if you watch my video before this, you could see where I talked about what actually caused this damage. And you can see here where I'm chipping away. If they had just drilled a hole here just below the eye hook, the water would have drained down into the hull and into the bilge. I have no idea why they didn't do that. But unfortunately, the water was pooling up there, and over time, it just caused the wood to rot out. I mean, it did last for 30 years, so I guess it was kind of due to be replaced. But, you know, having to do this it was really kind of unnecessary. So here you can see the big chunk of rotting wood. I'm not even sure what kind of wood it is. It looks like maybe a Douglas fir or something, or plywood. I'm not really sure, but it was rotted. Definitely mush. Alright, so after the grinding disc, I moved to my electric die grinder with a fiberglass grinding bit on the end. So I use this quite a bit for some detailed trimming. So here I'm just going to use it to clean out any of the rest of the remaining wood that's down in that area, and also to trim the bottom where they should have put the drain hole. So I'm going to use the bit to just cut that area out so that the water can drain down into the bilge in the future, and it won't pool up here in this front area. Alright, all cleaned out, and you can see my fingers popping up through there. If they had a hole there in the beginning, I probably wouldn't be doing this work. So now it's all set, ready to get prepped for the new core, and move over to my sawhorses here. And I'm just cutting 2 small strips, wide enough and long enough to fit into that area that I just trimmed out, and I'm going to temporarily screw them together. So once I had those Coosa pieces test fit into place, now I want to put a radius on the bottom piece so that it matches the contour of the bow shape. So here I'm just using my cordless 4.5-inch grinder with a flap disc on it, and just little by little taking off some material here and trying to match the radius of the hull to this Coosa, and then we're going to take it and epoxy it into place. Alright, so it looks pretty good. It looks like the contour matches the hull pretty well. So I'm going to mix up some thickened epoxy and start to get to putting it into place. So in hindsight on this, I made it 2 pieces of Coosa thick, and if you can see here, I put this one piece in and it actually fits really well. I probably would have been just fine just using one layer. I think it's 3/4 inch Coosa, or maybe it's 1 inch. I can't remember. I had some scraps laying around. I think it's 1 inch. So I ended up making it 2 inch thick, the backer plate, but I probably should have just left it 1 inch and put the glass right over it here. Because you'll see here in a moment, I did have some problems putting the glass on top of the 2 pieces because I had trouble getting it to lay flat, but you'll see here in a minute what I'm talking about. So here I'm just using my mini 3-inch grinder just to put a small radius on the edge of this top piece of Coosa. Just so the glass will roll over the edges. The glass will have a hard time making that 90-degree bend. It actually turned out this radius wasn't enough. I should have put a bigger radius in it because, again, like I said, I had some issues here. So I just cut up a couple pieces, put one on each side, one over the top. I think I ended up having 4 layers of 1700 with epoxy in total for this lamination. So here I mix up some 1-to-1 laminated epoxy, and I'm using my chip brush just to put down a little layer underneath. And here I'm just using the chip brush to wet out these pieces of 1700 biaxial cloth. So you might be asking yourself, can I do this with polyester? And yeah, absolutely you could. But in a situation like this, in a repair like this that's so small, it's just better to use epoxy, because epoxy is better than polyester pretty much in every way. The chemical adhesion properties are better, plus it's super hot. If I was using polyester right here, the resin would be kicking off so fast. I'd be working against the clock and rushing. So here you can see I actually had some troubles getting this piece to lay flat, and because I'm using epoxy, I just decided to pick it up and move it because it just would not lay the way that I wanted it. So if I was using polyester, I probably wouldn't have been able to do that because it would have kicked before I had an opportunity to move it around. So here I moved it to the left and then cut another piece and put the other piece on the right and overlap the 2 in the middle, and then I put another piece over the top of that to tie those together. And this epoxy ended up drying in a couple hours, so a lot easier than struggling with polyester in this heat. So that's pretty much going to wrap up this video. After this was dried, I just cleaned up some of the sharp edges with my grinder and belt sander, and then I drilled the holes back and put the eye hook back into place. Isn't my best looking lamination ever. Had some troubles getting it to lay flat. Like I said, in hindsight, I probably should have just done one 1-inch layer of Coosa and it would have been fine. So quick little video, guys, showing you what I did to replace that eye hook, and I did use the boat shortly after this, and it worked really well. So appreciate you watching this one, guys. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below, and as always, see you in the next one.